Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the marriage of my youth. I'm very happy and glad to have you with us today. Please join us even as we get on this incredible journey. Today, I'm very excited and privileged to speak to Pastor Dave and Pastor Eileen. And today we have a very, very interesting topic. Today we want to consider and look into Western marriage. You are going to be blessed, so please stay with us. And today we want to really dig into Western marriage. How are you guys doing today?
Good, good.
Yeah,
Thanks
doing
for
well.
having
Thanks,
us.
Ben.
That's good. That's good. So, Pastor Dave, I had to pray and fast in order to get him on the camera. He's it's gonna be a blessing today. It's gonna be a blessing today. So, Pastor Dave and Pastor Allen, thank you so much for being here today, and it's a blessing. It's a privilege. Before we go any further, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your marriage, your kids, church? And we can take off from there.
Who's first?
Start.
Okay. All right. So we've been married for 34 years. Lived most of our lives here in Perth, in our marriage lives. You probably pick I've got a Kiwi accent. So I came out here. We went back to New Zealand, got married and came here.
Wow.
But all our kids have been born here.
Yeah.
So we have 5 children who have all grown up now.
Yeah.
And all doing their own things and living life. So
that's good. That's good. That's
And
good.
4 grandchildren.
and 4 grandchildren.
Wow.
There we go.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you very much. And they are both pastors and pastor in the mission church. For how long now?
10 years with mission.
Wow.
Yeah, 10
Wow.
years.
That's good. That's good. So once again, thank you so much for being here today. And today we want to talk about Western marriage. We want to look into that and just bring some help, bring some clarity, and just have a conversation. So I want to start off. I got some questions written out, and I want to start off with this question. So we are getting ready into it. What is the Western idea of marriage, and what is the primary reason for marriage in the Western society? So, when we talk about Western marriage, what is the idea behind that, and what is the primary reason for marriage in the Western society?
It's interesting you ask, because just before here I was doing preparation for a wedding, and I just read the statement of what is a Western marriage. Now I've got to remember it, but it goes to for mutual for a couple to come together of their free will for emotional and mutual benefit.
Yeah.
To just be able to be with each other by choice, and to have a marriage that's exclusive
Wow.
just to them.
Wow.
So that probably would cover
Yeah.
the Western marriage. What are your thoughts?
I think it's, that for sure, accurate. But I also feel like thoughts around marriage have been changing for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Societally, we've got a lot more maybe options out there.
Yeah.
And I can see from where we started to where our children are now getting married,
Yeah.
thinking seems to have changed quite a lot on what's acceptable, what's expected,
Yeah.
all those sorts of things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's good. That's good. So can we look into some of the reasons, or the primary reason for marriage in the Western society?
Well, do you know what? I spoke to one of my sons this morning.
Yeah.
And I asked him, it's Liam, and he said, the girl wants a rock.
What does that
and a
mean?
party.
Yeah. Okay.
Totally accurate, by the way. But no, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
That was his initial thought.
Yeah.
I was really quite surprised. But for me,
Yeah.
probably it's the companionship,
Yeah.
wanting to have a family. Yeah, all those sorts of things.
That's good.
I'm sure they'll come in as well.
That's
For
good.
this generation.
Yeah,
This next generation.
Okay. That's interesting. So now we want to talk about leadership in the Western context of marriage. So what is the concept of leadership in the Western marriage?
So I just want to clarify a little bit, the leadership being out of who's the leader of the family, the unit, the family, the husband and wife.
Yes.
So the Western culture would have traditionally come out of, I'll say, poor doctrine of the husband being the head of the house.
Okay.
And the dominant person.
Okay, so that happened in the Western.
That was in the Western, and we very much have come out of a culture of male dominance.
Yeah.
And there's been changing in that, and there's a more understanding. How do I say that? There's a better understanding of a more equal relationship.
Equal relationship.
And when you say equal, I think you never have true equal because you'll always have some who have a higher understanding of areas of marriage.
Yeah.
But you'll always be switching from he knows more about finance, she knows more about emotions or whatever. And it's that working together and that unity. So leadership becomes...
Yeah.
So I think that's becoming more of Western culture to go, well, these are your strengths and you know these, so I'll submit to you in that culture in that sense. But there's other things that I'm not going to surrender to because I feel I know more. So it's more transitional than it used to be, I suppose.
Yeah. So previously it was more dominant by the men. So, but now it's being more 50-50 kind of leadership that is happening in the home.
That's what I would say for definitely you see in Australia. It's still, there still definitely is a lot of people who have a very male dominant because it's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
But I'd say you'd find a lot more houses now in Western culture would actually share the leadership.
Okay. So would you say that that progression is because of civilization or globalization? So is it because of how things is gradually changing, or what would you say about that?
I would agree that, globalisation, I mean, you look at different cultures, not everybody has a paternal, many have a maternal leadership within their culture.
Yeah.
And I think as people have travelled and experienced each other's ways of doing things, you do have that crossover, you do have that learning. For us, we came from New Zealand, and that's probably more maternal. We're in Australia. Aboriginal people, more maternal as well.
Yeah.
And I think for ourselves personally, both our parents, obviously an older generation, but both of them worked very well together. Yeah. Which is a huge blessing for us. But their experiences, because they both travelled. Yeah. Both sets of parents travelled a lot. And we're exposed to other cultures. Yeah. And I think that broadens your perspective. Wow. And brings more understanding and clarity really. Yeah. In your own situation. Wow. Yeah.
That's good. So just along those lines, I want to talk about liberalism. So most people view the Western type of marriage as being the most liberal. What's your opinion on that? Where we have open marriages and things like that.
Yeah, some people do. You're right.
I think it actually goes against even the form of marriage as we're still very much Western culture is still very much you're married to one person. You partner for life in that sense that you have that. So the completeness of liberalism would be like you're speaking about within your marriage opening up to other sexual interests and things that will come with strings attached because you can't bring another person into a relationship without then experiencing conflict of some sort, because you've become one unit, and then you bring someone else, and there's going to be a level of someone's going to miss out, or something. You get, I can't remember the word I'm looking for isn't coming to me, but jealousy. And so Western culture is still very dominantly one person commits to the other person. And the liberalism in that, there's definitely a lot more liberalism in men don't have to mow lawns and women cook. We're a lot freer to go, well, men can cook and women can mow lawns. And that gender sort of stuff that we've had as a traditional now, and you got married and you did the man thing and she does the woman thing. We're recognising, but that we still live as one unit, and we still live in one relationship, but we share the workload and we don't put a gender to the workload. And I think that's a little bit freeing.
I think that's very interesting. So even though there are certain tasks, for example, that should be allocated for men, but you just flow along, and she can do it, you can do it if she's able to do it. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I want to touch on something very, very key. Are Western marriages based on biblical teachings, or is it one that is just being married but living as separate individuals? Looking at the aspect of where the Bible talks about the two shall become one. So Western marriages living as one, or they are just married but living separately?
That's an interesting one, because there's an element of both that takes place, and there's still the people that try to be one, but in working too hard on being one, somebody's been manipulated, or their opinion doesn't count, or they're not really being true to themselves. The biblical model is actually to love each other the way Christ loved us. It's an interesting one. I've lost my thought there, so I'll hand it to
you. That's all right.
My head is just going back, a couple of centuries, really, where women were chattels. We were seen as property in the West. And to me, that's really challenging, because I appreciate the women that have gone through, the suffragettes at the turn of the century, that brought in the vote in Australia, 1902. So women like that fought for our rights, our not to be the same, not to have to do everything that a man does, but to be able to complement one another, rather than one being above the other.
That's good. That's good. So most people believe that Western marriages works best, especially in the areas of equal contribution. What's your opinion on that?
I think societally, that's been driven. And essentially, I don't think it's a bad thing. But I think recognising that we need one another. You can take all these things to an extreme, and it's almost like the pendulum. I was talking about, people who were undermined, really, women at this point, and then as the pendulum is swinging, get to the situation where, when we were brought up, our parents complemented one another well, and then as the pendulum is swinging, I think people are becoming more individualistic as time goes on. That's sort of been driven more and more, and I think we have to be careful to balance that in life, not to forget the other person. And just charge off and do our own thing.
True.
I also think the 50-50 thing is a bit of a hard one because it gets a bit legalistic, and today I did the chores and tomorrow you do the chores, and it just gets quite hard. It can take that out of it. But I think at 50-50 you've only got 100%. But in a marriage there's always going to be the gap.
Yeah.
And so I think if you gave 70-70, you'd have 150%, and then when there's that 50% gap, so you need to come into a marriage with a heart of giving more than you take.
Yeah.
Because the reality is we all think we give more than the other person receives. And so if we're giving 70% and they're giving 70%, we're probably closer to the 50-50.
Yeah.
If the truth be known. But it's just something that I think is important that we do bring into a marriage is an attitude of, I'm going to make this work and I'm going to bring more than my share.
Yeah.
And also, to follow on with that, Dave, when one partner has a crisis or is unable to give into the relationship as much as maybe they had previously, that's where that cover comes in. That's where that extra is so beneficial. Yeah. Because then you still have a unity, even though one may be flagging a little bit. Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
I think it's necessary.
That's good. So, so most Western marriages thrive on the concept of every marriage is different, and so what that means is that we want to stick to what works for us. Is that something that you believe is true? So like, okay, every marriage is different, so you stick to what works for you.
I think that's quite a healthy concept within reason, because every two people are different. We're all unique and we're made in different ways. So our personality types, the way we do everything is going to be different. Working out a way that works as a compatible thing for your relationship. For us, for instance, Eileen earned a lot more money than I ever did. So she went to work and I become house mum.
Yeah.
But even within that, I watched a lot of people try to be house mum, but they weren't doing the full job because men don't appreciate the fullness of what a woman does in the cleaning, the ongoingness of it, you know.
Yeah.
Where a lot of house dads just look after kids, take them to school, come home, and the house mum still. So that's getting off subject a little bit, but it's. I think it's healthy for seasons in our lives to not be stuck in that, you know, like that gender role thing that we've had traditionally. And that wouldn't work for somebody else. I wouldn't recommend it for somebody else.
That's right.
Because that's us.
Yeah.
But it was also, it was more than a money thing.
Yeah.
Dave wanted to be present for his children. He wanted to be there and be more effective and have a better relationship with his children. Yeah. So the opportunity arose that I was able to study and then work, and he supported me in that. If he hadn't supported me, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Yeah. You know, so again, there's that. So 70-70.
That pattern worked for you people, so you follow that. Yeah. And we are here today. Yeah. That's good. That's good. I want to touch on a very interesting one, and this is intermarriage. So how have intermarriage shaped the Western idea of marriage or the Western culture of marriage? Because we're seeing now more and more that maybe an African is getting married to a Westerner, European is getting married to. So how have that shaped the idea of Western marriage, where Westerners now have to marry outsider, so to speak?
We sort of touched on that a little bit earlier, didn't we? Really, with people experiencing other people's cultures. We've got a couple that are just coming to stay with us tonight for a few weeks, and they're from different cultures. Yeah. But I think their experiences, they were both actually brought up in Western areas, even though their parents came from different areas in the world. Yeah. So they have to, and anybody who's into marriage or anybody who's not, really, you've still got different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Whether you're from a different culture or not. But the linkages, the things that brought you together in the first place, they're the things that will keep you together. They're the points of strength in the relationship that you can build on. And I think it's great.
It is. I don't think we put enough value on what we can learn out of those relationships because they when you come from different culture, you've got a lot of more difficult things to work through. And if it's a culture, you're going to sit down as a couple and go, what do we need to keep from our culture that's critical for me to stay African or for me to stay Australian? And especially, and I've noticed African cultures, but there's cultures who carry the strong traditions. How do they do well in Western, where we've only got the one view? We sort of just think you're married, but the reality is, hang on, it's important that I look after my mother-in-law. It's important that I do my, what do you call it, bride price, dowry. And yet I've got to still live in Australia and save money. So I think those things are really worth, they are bringing changes to our concept and our value. I can get a wife and it's going to cost me the rock on her finger. But I know some of my friends in the other cultures have had to spend 70, 80, and because they're in Western, I'm talking thousands, if they were home, they could do it in a different fashion. So I think the challenge becomes how do we make that both ways, where other cultures become a little bit more Western and we understand the value of what somebody's worth from life as well, So
that's pretty profound. That's good. So in the Western marriage, it seems as though the wives have got more power than the men. What's your opinion on that? So for example, let's say something happened in the home, wife takes his phone and call the police. Police comes, it doesn't do thorough investigation, put a restraining order on the man. What's your opinion on that?
I think that's more a government thing in protecting the vulnerable.
Okay.
And I think men generally are stronger, more violent, and can do more damage. So I think that's the first step of call for protecting the vulnerable, is actually to look at that more so than it is a cultural thing. Sometimes I agree that it's gone too far, and it can be really hard for a good man to get for instance, to see his children again, because a woman's sort of abused that system. But it's very difficult to get that right. And I think the government's trying to do their best to duty of care and look after people and things like that. So we probably have swung a little bit, but at the same time, a dangerous one not to do something to.
Wow, that's good. That's good. I want to read something. And so now on parenting. So how can you explain the freedom of kids in the Western marriage, in line with the biblical idea in Proverbs chapter 13, verse 24, where the Bible says, he who spared the rod hates their children, but he who loves their children is careful to discipline them. How can we bring calm?
I think we smacked our children. No whipping or, let's be clear. That's not on. But we definitely smacked them when they were young. And that was purely so that they would have a quick, there was a quick response to something that they did that maybe they continued to do that was wrong. Not necessarily first option. And I take my hat off to people who are able to bring their children up and they don't have any sort of punishment that inflicts a little bit of pain. But I also think, again, that can be taken too far. Very, very easily.
Yeah. And Dave and I were just discussing just before we started how even the other form of discipline or punishment also leave some form of trauma in the head of the kids as well. So you want to touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, I think going back to that verse,
the discipline.
I think we have to interpret it correctly as well. And so it speaks as smack or spanking. But I think it's the Proverbs is sort of talking about the culture of discipline.
Yeah.
And I think smacking we came out of the generation where capital punishment was the thing, and we went to the school and put a hand down and got 6 of the best.
Yeah.
And it was quite normal. We grew up tough,
Yes.
And so now that would be seen as a wrong behaviour, and if a teacher did it, they'd be in trouble. But I think the biblical teaching when that first came out, it was too literal.
They took it
the
too
Proverbs
literal.
has taken that as parents, we need to discipline our children.
Yeah.
And without discipline, you're going to have a 20-year-old with a 2-year-old tantrum.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous person.
Yeah.
But a 2-year-old who's been taught that they can't have their own way is a healthy person.
Yeah.
And so I think that we need to be very aware discipline needs to take place in many forms. And just a smack or just sending someone to the naughty corner or just you need to be careful sometimes that we're not creating a space for someone to be distanced and unloved because I'm ignoring them.
Feel neglected.
I'm using other forms of punishment which aren't healthy either. Psychological and other things. So it's a very fine line, but the discipline and the fashion that we need to look at is how God disciplines us, and it's with love and it's gentle. Yeah. And there's often a little bit of a pain because we feel that the consequence of our behaviour and stuff. So hopefully that helps.
Understand on that. That's good. That's good.
good.
So now I want to talk about the two of you now. So
that's dangerous.
So you've been married for 34 years. So how can you describe the dynamics of your marriage as Western pastor?
Well, that's a tricky one.
My husband's very laid back.
And I think the dynamics would have to be that
What's up with a lot?
that there's been a true love for each other.
Yeah.
And through thick and thin, we've learnt to understand each other. We've done what we can in the sense of reaching out for help. Yeah. When things were there, right early in our marriage, we went and did counselling because friends had said that was the best thing we ever did. We should have done it when we first got married. Yeah. And we rock up to a counselling, and everyone's looking at, boy, you've got trouble in your marriage if you're here.
We're like married 3 months somewhere at counselling.
But the wisdom from that was we didn't go through a lot of those journeys because we learned how to communicate better. And we learned that there's certain things that we were going to have issues with, but we got them when they were still only very early in our relationship. So I think that would be a willingness to learn, a love to each other, and a commitment to each other that we've held for that 35 years, I'd say. Yeah.
And the communication thing, I think, is the key, really. Yeah. Huge. And that course really helped prepare us. But, I mean, there've been times where Dave's sort of said to me, I would have left you, when such and such happened if I didn't have God. Yeah. In my life, if I wasn't able to go to God and
speak to him,
and really share his heart.
And
so
usually
that's a bit shocking.
Those times are my heart. God corrects me. Yeah. So when I go to God, He softens my heart. He helps me see it with a better perspective. And I think that's been very helpful.
That has happened to me a lot. So sometimes I go complaining and say, no, deal with yourself. So it's very practical for people that knows how to speak to God, which is prayer. If you know how to pray, which I encourage your Christian too. When you get there, he hears you. He knows that you have brought some complaints, but then he focuses on you first, because when you are right, you will get it right on the other side as well. So that's good. So what are some secrets and tips that you can share with us living in the Western society and been married for so many years? what are advice that you can give that can really help people?
I think off the back of what you just said, I can only change me.
Yeah.
I can't change her.
Mm.
And I think understanding that's a really big tip.
Yeah.
That I can't change somebody else and their behaviour, but I can do what I can do.
Yeah.
So that's one.
True. I was just thinking as well, girls, if you want to change your husband's heart, you go to God.
That's good. That's good.
Go to God.
Yeah.
He knows. He knows all. He knows what your partner's going through.
Yeah.
Where you're at.
Yeah.
And he'll bring a correction or an encouragement and bring away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So, any final words for our audience as we close?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's worth it.
Yeah.
It's totally worth it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That's good. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I believe you have learned a lot, and we have to take some of these things and put them into practice. And would you just pray for those that are watching that they will do well, and God will really help them in their journey of marriage? Yeah.
Yeah, Father, I thank you that we're all doing a different journey and that every person who's watching here is in a different situation. But from my experience, I do know that I can trust you and I can bring all things to you, and where it's easy, where it's hard, I can celebrate and I can weep. And so, Lord, I just pray for each person here that they can trust you, that they can come to a place where you're part of their lives and part of their marriage. And it doesn't really matter what culture we live in. It does matter that our hearts are for each other and for you, and that you will make it successful because that's your heart. You want the good for us. You want the best for each of us. So we ask this in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you so much.